Hey Peggy, how are you?
Hey Nick, good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm Nick L'Ecuyer. I'm president of Mortgage Wellness. I'm here with Remax Canada's #1 real estate agent, and we're chatting about the 5 questions that everybody wants to know about what's happening in this market. So who better to ask, right? All right, that's
Let's
you,
see.
Peggy.
We'll
That's
see.
you.
We'll see about
Okay,
that.
question #1 on everybody's mind. What is the market currently doing? I've heard that there aren't a lot of houses for sale.
Yeah, no, that's an understatement. There are pretty much no houses for sale. Very few, very few. And what comes up goes down pretty quick.
Yeah. So in a typical month of January, we'd have, say, just general stats, a few hundred listings in the area, and we're
Yep,
looking at like a few dozen listings in the area, sort of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're still in a situation where it's very, very, very much so a seller's market, you would say.
I would say that just based on price, this is probably going to be the top of the market. It's higher than it's been even through last year, even through all this craziness. It is the highest it's been right now.
Yeah, I remember you telling me last year that I believe the highest price point month of the year was like February, which I found really, really, really surprising. And it sounds like the same is happening again this year.
Yeah, except I think this time it's going to be January.
Okay, interesting.
I
Yeah,
think
very interesting.
this is our top, and it happened last year as well. Our first quarter was nutso, and then it kind of quieted down through the summer. And I'm not going to say prices dropped, but that we weren't getting the insanity of what we were getting before. And prices really only are reflected through supply. So if we don't have the supply, demand is obviously there, has been all through this. That's it. That's what it doesn't matter how big your house is, doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter how it looks. It just matters how many people are looking at the time when you put it on the market.
Yeah, that's a great answer to the question. Thanks very much. Question #2, this is a big one. Is this market going to crash?
Yes. No, just kidding. I imagine that this craziness cannot continue. And I'm a true believer that markets fix themselves. I think when a market overheats, then the buyers back off because they can't afford them. They can't afford to be in the market, and at that point, that's where we get sellers with homes that they believe they missed the market, which is what I think will happen again. Everybody blames it on government intervention in 2017, and that market had already started to cool long before the government brought in any kind of intervention. And it'll happen again because the only thing that has fueled this market for the last 20 years are our first-time buyers. And once we make this market unaffordable for the first-time buyers, it's the foundation of the house that the housing industry is built on, and then it all collapses. So do I think it's going to crash? No. Do I think it's going to quiet down? Yes. Do I think prices will drop? I absolutely do. I've been saying this for a year, and I know I don't look so smart yet, but there will come a time when I look smart.
Mm-hmm.
But interest rates and home prices don't travel in the same direction. So they will. Interest rates matter. They really matter.
Yeah. And I get asked this question a lot as well, obviously. And what the picture that I like to paint for clients is, they started with a $500,000 home, and then we saw that crazy jump in 2017, let's say, to a $700,000 home, and the same $700,000 home has traveled up to $1 million. And that's a 50% appreciation. It's something that we've never seen. And everybody is on the same page about the fact that it's, this sort of like, wild appreciation. I'll call it fictional equity, right? That's just grown over time. So, 500 is where they're in at. And maybe 600 is really what they expected in ownership over that time. And now we're over $1 million. Everybody's saying my neighbor across the street sold for 1.1 million or 1.2 million. So, if Peggy, I said, your house was with 500, yes, it appreciated 600, you'd be very happy. It's appreciated to 700, 800, 900, a million, 1.1 million. We're all on the same page when you say to me, Nick, that's crazy. Okay, so are we going to be upset when that value, maybe stabilizes? I won't say decrease, stabilizes back down to say 950. No, you won't, because you were in at 5 and you expected 6. We all agree that 1.1 is high, and some people have to spend that to get in the market. We know that too. But if it stabilizes, even I'll use the word cautiously, decreases to like 950, we know we're still up. When we talk about a market crash, what everybody's sort of concerned with is, I was in at 5, it grew to 1 million, and it goes down to 300,000, and that's not going to happen.
No,
Can't.
not at all.
Yeah.
No, it can't, because I mean, it's just like the stock market. You build a base and you go up, you build a base and you go up. So we've built bases along the way.
Yeah,
There's
agree.
no way with this much demand that you will ever see this market crumble to nothing. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, people have been waiting. And 2 years ago, people were like, "Oh, the market's going to crash. I'm going to wait to buy. I'm going to wait to buy." And it's like, they're still waiting, and now they can't afford to buy.
That's right.
They just can't afford to buy.
So let's jump into the interest rate conversation, because actually question 3 on my list was, do you think that interest rates going up will affect house values? You sort of already answered the question, but let's just dive into that really quick. Do you think that interest rates going up will affect house values?
I do, because interest rates going up means buyers' affordability goes down. And like I've said before, buyers are the secret to the secret sauce to this. It's all the buyer demand that's given us all this crazy frothy market that that this whole thing is come off on. It's the buyers. So if the buyers can't afford to buy, then what happens? And I mean, I don't know, Nick, you tell me. So does 0.5% make a difference to a buyer?
So it's really interesting, actually, as a conversation, because there's 2 rates, as you know. There's the actual contract rate of a mortgage, and then there's the qualification rate, which everybody knows now as the stress test rate. Everybody knows the stress test now. So there's the qualification rate, the actual, the stress test rate, and then what you actually pay. If the stress test rate doesn't go up, then affordability is the same. You qualify for the same home no matter what, even if rates change.
Right.
However, the true, sort of like output and affordability of a family's budget does go up. And, there's always the number that somebody qualifies for, and then there's the number that they have to pay. So we will commonly say to a client, at the start of the conversation, in a perfect world, how much would you pay for your new dream home? Like per month, like what's your budget? And they'll say 3,000 is reasonable. And I'll say, great. That translates into a home like that actually costs, let's say $600,000. And at the end of the conversation, I'll say, great news, you qualify for $800,000. And they'll say, well, that's good news, but it's more than I want to spend, right? Like on a monthly, like how much does that cost per month? And that's what it all boils down to. So to answer your question, it may not qualify people for less on paper, but it's certainly going to qualify them for less in their head, because they're just not going to be comfortable with the payments of increased interest rates, right?
And that's the issue, because so much of this is based on emotion. And that's why, people talk about, buying and selling real estate online, never needing a realtor. But guess what? Homes are still based on emotion. And the emotion of the buyer is that if the rates go up, I can't afford to buy. The emotion of the seller is what's really going to trigger this, is if at some point the buyers say they can't buy, or there's less buyers, the sellers are going to know that they missed the top. And then what happens at that point? That's what happened in 2017. We had all these people wanting to buy, and then all of a sudden it was somebody turned off the tap, and the sellers were so scared that they missed the top that everybody was listing. And the more people listed their homes, the more inventory we had, the further the prices drove down.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's really good. A really good story to tell. Thank you for that. Number 4, should I think about selling and renting in this market?
I think about it every day.
Right. Yeah.
Every day I think about that. And honestly, I think if it wouldn't take much to convince me, because, most people's homes are worth more than they ever imagined they would ever have in their lives.
Yeah.
So would I do it? 100% I would do it. I would do it. I would, like any other investment, if you've made money and take some off the top, I totally get that all day long. The only thing I wouldn't do is not have a rental.
Right. I knew you were going to say
guaranteed.
that, because there is a crisis occurring with available rentals. You can't find a rental property right
100%.
now.
No,
You know,
you can't.
you think you're going to have a problem finding a house to buy, try finding a rental right now. So I think there's two things that sort of play into that question, actually, Peggy. Number one is it's a generational thing. So I think it's easier for you to maybe accept selling and renting because you're a little more mobile without children in school districts to have to worry about.
Exactly.
And in my world, you know, where I live in Oro, it would be very difficult to find a rental in Oro and to keep my kids in the school district and everything else. I think there's a lot more to think about in that conversation. So
100%.
I think maybe empty nesters are really considering that conversation of selling and renting, whereas those that still have kids in school districts to, you know, sort of keep in mind are maybe not considering it as much. And those are the people that are looking at refinancing or moving within their community.
Well, and I had done a commercial for CTV, and my messaging was, if you're retired or if you're that part of your life, you know, like there's nothing wrong. And a lot of times with that generation, which would be my generation, you know, we have a stigma around renting. So I was trying to eliminate the stigma, saying people are doing this. It makes sense. And then I had a lady reach out to me and said, "Oh, you know, you're being discriminatory. This is about ageism." And it's like, no, I'm not discriminating. I'm just saying I am more aware that somebody that's older, that's already been through the cycle, their work cycle, is now, you know, I'd be more afraid of my parents losing 50,000 than me losing 50,000.
Yeah.
I'd be even less afraid of you losing 50,000 because you're that much younger than me. So your risk tolerance goes up as you age. So my advice was, if you're in that situation, you are retired, you know, there is nothing wrong with taking money off the table. That's really what the message was about.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Final question. Is this still a great market to invest in?
It depends what you want and why you want it. Did I buy anything in the last 365 days? Yeah, probably 3 things. I'm always buying real estate because I believe in real estate.
Yeah, me too.
And it fit in my portfolio. It fit
and
where
your
I wanted to be.
Your whole the life plan, right?
It fit. So yes, I did. Would I say that every investor should get in right now? It just depends. It depends what you want from it, because a lot of times with prices this high, they don't cash flow.
Right.
But however, if you're getting low interest rates, you're paying down your principal, right? So you tell us, what are the 3 factors?
Yeah, the 3 factors that we always preach to clients looking at, you know, this sort of question is, you know, you want a real estate investment to have cash flow, principal pay down, mortgage pay down, and appreciation. So everybody's concern in this market is appreciation. You know, is it going to go up in value? That's really what they're asking, right? Is this market, you know, a good one to invest in? What they're really saying, if you read between the lines, is, will I make money on this house from an appreciation
100%.
perspective?
But let's say you don't. Let's say you bought a townhouse tomorrow, you rented it out, it cash flows, you're breaking even, and you're not going to make money for the next 5 years. Who cares?
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, you've paid down your mortgage, because your principal, because the rates are so low, they're historically low. You know, you've paid a big chunk down. So what if you don't see any appreciation for another few years? I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a time when you didn't see appreciation in real estate.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to go way back.
Yeah.
However, not having the top line appreciate isn't the worst thing in the world.
This is it, right? So, you know, we always, you know, sort of, if I could draw a picture, it'd be a bar stool, like a 3-legged bar stool. You want 2 of those legs to be really strong. So if you're going to forfeit appreciation, if that's your concern, for example, let's say you're overpaying for a home just to get the cash flow would have to be very strong, and you'd want to get yourself a very good mortgage. Now, if you can find something in this market that is undervalued, you're one of the lucky buyers, you won the lottery, you know, they accepted your offer, you feel good about the price point, and we know it's going to appreciate because it's an up and coming area. For example, Mapleview and Yonge Street, for example, you got a great mortgage that's going to pay down at a great rate, and you get cash flow, then you should absolutely invest in this market, right?
Yep. If it makes sense, it has to make sense.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the 5 questions that are on everybody's mind. They're answered by Remax Canada's #1 agent, yours truly, Peggy Hill. Peggy, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for your time.